everyone, and thank you for stopping by. My name is Vavain and I'm here at the Bibliotek to talk about this book over here called The Color of Magic by Terry Pratchett. So this book is the first one in the Discworld series. Now, if you haven't heard of Discworld before, don't worry, I'm going to start this video by giving you a quick overview of Discworld. I'm then going to move on and give you a summary of this book, so if you haven't read it, you'll know what I'm talking about. And then I'm just going to give you my thoughts on the book and just discuss a few sort of interesting points that I came across. Alright, so Discworld. Discworld is a flat world which sits on the back of 4 giant elephants, which sit on the back of an even greater turtle called Octurine, who floats through space. Now, all of this is situated in a multiverse. Now, keep the multiverse in mind because we will come back to that topic later. So the Discworld novels are about the citizens of Discworld and their daily lives and the kinds of sort of shenanigans and adventures that go on in Discworld or on Discworld. So most of the stories take place in a city-state called Ankh-Morpork, but there are other continents on Discworld, and some of the stories do feature these other continents and characters from these other continents. So the first book is The Color of Magic, and it's the story of the first ever tourist in Discworld. His name is Twoflower, and he comes from something called the Counterweight Continent, and he's always heard about Ankh-Morpork, and finally he saved up enough money to go and visit it. Now, he's the first tourist in that people in Discworld have moved around before, but it's usually been for a purpose. So either they're traders, or they've been sold into slavery, or maybe they got lost. But Twoflower is the first person on Discworld that has ever said, I'm going to move from A to B just to go look around, just to go do some sightseeing. So he arrives in Ankh-Morpork. He doesn't speak the language, people don't really understand what he wants, and he comes across a wizard called Rincewind. Now, get used to Rincewind because he is one of the reoccurring characters in the Discworld series. And Rincewind is not really the best wizard, but he is quite a linguist. He speaks a number of languages, and luckily he and Twoflower find a common language, or a lingua franca, and they're able to communicate. And so Twoflower has the idea of hiring Rincewind to be his tour guide and to show him around Ankh-Morpork. And Rincewind is a bit hesitant, but when he sees how much Twoflower is offering to pay, he just can't pass this offer up. So the two of them have some misadventures all across Ankh-Morpork. Not going to spoil it for you, but for their own good, they then need to leave Ankh-Morpork, and they then have a series of misadventures all across Discworld. So in a nutshell, that is the story of The Color of Magic. Now, I really like the idea that the first book in the Discworld series features a tourist, because for a tourist, everything is new. So I think this is a really good way to introduce the reader to a new world and to new customs and new characters. And instead of just the narrator saying, this is what this city looks like, or, you know, this is how this person behaves, you can write it into the story and say, you know, this was the tourist's first experience, you know, this is how things were explained to the tourist, or this was the experience that the tourist had. So I think that's a really clever way to introduce your world to the readers. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is the book being called The Color of Magic. And in Discworld, if you are a wizard, or I think if you have any kind of magical talents, you can see an 8th color called Octurine. So normally humans can see 7 colors in the color spectrum, but if you're a wizard or a magical person, you can see an 8th color called Octurine. And I have heard this color mentioned in several other Terry Pratchett books, but I have never actually heard what this color is. Like, I've never heard a description of the color. I used to imagine it as like an iridescent color, but it's not. The Color of Magic actually clearly states that Octurine is a greenish yellowish color with a purple tinge. So if you're thinking, you know, what on earth does that look like? I suppose we're just not supposed to see it. We're just not magical people. But yeah, as closely as Octurine can be discussed, or can be described, I should say, apparently it is a greenish yellowish color with a purple tinge. So there you go, that is the color of magic. Another thing that we learn in the color of magic is that Ankh-Morpork, the city-state which is most prominently featured in the Discworld novels, was originally two cities. It was Ankh and Morpork, and at some point a bridge is built which joins these two cities and they become Ankh-Morpork. Now, normally when we read the other books, we're already in the city-state of Ankh-Morpork, but in The Color of Magic there are still two separate cities. There's Ankh, where the people are a little bit more sort of prestigious. They kind of look down on the people of Morpork, and we see that they actively do things to sabotage the people of Morpork. I'm not going to tell you too much more about it, but yeah, this is the first book that I have read where Ankh and Morpork have not joined together to become a city-state. The next thing that I wanted to discuss is the sex of Octurine, who is the great turtle which has the 4 elephants on its back which holds Discworld. Now, if you read the blurb of The Color of Magic, it says that Great Octurine's sex is unknown. However, if you read the book, if you turn to the first page, it clearly describes Great Octurine as being a he. It refers to him or he with a capital H several times in like the second paragraph on the first page. So at first I thought, this is a bit confusing. How come in the book it clearly states that Octurine is male, but on the blurb it says that the sex is unknown? But if you keep reading the book, it becomes clear that the narrator is telling us that Octurine is male, but the narrator isn't speaking to the denizens of Discworld. So the people who live on Discworld speculate about Great Octurine's sex. There's a reason that they speculate about that. I'm not going to tell you, you have to read the book. But yeah, at first I was a bit confused, but I'm telling you this is sort of a little secret, a little thing that we're in on. Great Octurine is male, but the people who live on Discworld do not know that. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is, this is of course the first book in the Discworld series, and there are 41 books, but each book in the series is a standalone novel. So that means that you can pick up any one of them and just start reading, and each novel should make sense on its own. And you can also read the novels in any order, and once again, because they are standalone novels, it should all make sense. That being said, if you do read a few of them, or if you do read them consecutively, you will see that some characters are reoccurring, and some of the same sort of cities or locations will be visited. So the city of Ankh-Morpork, and there are certain establishments such as Unseen University, which is where wizards go about their wizarding business, that will be reoccurring topics, but you can start with any one of them. I started with book 38, which is called I Shall Wear Midnight. That was the first Discworld novel that I ever read, and I was able to pick it up and read it and understand 99% of the story. That other 1% was a few references to things that had happened previously, but they were very minor. They didn't stop me from understanding the story. Although that being said, The Color of Magic ends on a cliffhanger. So I'm not actually sure what that means for the second book. The second book is called The Light Fantastic. At this point, I have not read it, so I'm not really sure what to say there. I'm not sure if The Light Fantastic carries on from The Color of Magic, but usually, perhaps with this one exception, usually the books are standalone novels. It has to be said that I normally find Terry Pratchett's writing really engaging. I've read about 50% of the Discworld novels. I really enjoy them, but with this novel, when I purchased it, I think the retailer explained it best. He said you can start with any one of them, but don't start with the first one. So if you've never read a Discworld novel before, start with anything else besides The Color of Magic, because Terry Pratchett's writing it's not quite there yet. It's not as good as it became in the future. So it's not his best work. I don't mean that as any kind of insult. I just mean, you know, the first time that you do something, no one is perfect the first time they do something. I think he was still, you know, finding his voice or finding his writing style. So if you are interested in the Discworld novels, yeah, I think start with any other one, but don't start with book one, because it's not his best work and it may give you the wrong impression. And then, so the next thing that I wanted to talk about is the book's actual format and the hard copy book. So in terms of format, this is the book. This is the size of the book in comparison to my hands. I should have measured it before I started filming this, but this is the size of the book. I want to say it's A5, but I actually found it really difficult to hold, and I don't know why that is, because as you can see, I have some of the other Discworld books here, and they're like about the same size. But yeah, for some reason I really found the Color of Magic, I really found it difficult to hold. So I found that I had to constantly like keep creasing the spine to keep it open, and I found that put like a lot of stress on my hands. Yes, I don't know what it is about this particular book, but I just found it very difficult to keep it open and keep it flat so that I could read. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is the cover art. So this cover is designed by Josh Kirby, who has designed many of the Discworld novel covers. I will put some of them on the screen for you now if you're unfamiliar with his work. He has a very distinctive sort of illustration style. His characters firstly always look sort of, you know, surprised or shocked, which I think really says something about what goes on in Discworld. But his characters also tend to be kind of like lumpy and wobbly. Again, I will show you what I mean, but he definitely has a distinctive style of illustrating. Now, also in terms of the hard copy book, this copy has FSC approval, so that is the Forest Stewardship Council. So there is a misconception that it's bad to use printed products because they're bad for the environment, they contribute to deforestation. I will just say that there is a symbol of like a tree and a tick. I will show it to you on the screen now. And if you see any kind of paper product that has this mark on it, it means that the paper from that, or the paper used in that product, was sourced sustainably. So what that means is that there are forests which are planted specifically to be cut down and turned into paper products, and then those trees are, you know, replanted once more and, you know, cut down once more. So if you see something that has the FSC symbol on it, you can rest assured that no, you know, old forests were, you know, cut down and, you know, destroyed to create that product. So yeah, unfortunately there is this sort of negative stereotype that paper products are bad for the environment. Maybe that's something that I will talk about in a future video, but rest assured you are not hurting the environment if you purchase a hard copy version of The Color of Magic. Now, in terms of the book's formatting, there are two things that I wanted to talk about. Firstly, chapters. So usually Terry Pratchett's books don't have chapters. They're just one long story. And I sometimes find that a bit annoying because I usually like to read to the next chapter. I'll usually look at how many more pages to go, and I'll be like, oh, you know, 2 more pages. Yeah, I think I could read, you know, 2 more pages, and then stop at the new chapter. Most of Terry Pratchett's books do not have chapters, so it can be a bit frustrating to pick a point to stop. But The Color of Magic is one of the few Discworld novels which has chapters. But for reasons unknown, that's something that he decided to discontinue in the future. And the final thing that I wanted to discuss about the formatting is footnotes, or footnotes. Footnotes. The final thing that I wanted to discuss about the formatting are footnotes. So The Color of Magic does include a few footnotes, not as many as there will be in future books. So there's a lot of sort of background story, or a lot of history to Discworld, so something that is quite common in Terry Pratchett books, starting with The Color of Magic, are footnotes where he will mention something and then be like, by the way, here's some more background information about this custom or this expression or this statue. Let me explain, you know, how this statue came to be, how it is, or let me explain, you know, this person's history and why they have this point of view or why they dress a certain way. So yeah, that's something that you see starting to develop right from the first book, and it is something that continues all the way through until book 41 of the Discworld series. Finally, the last thing that I wanted to talk about is the multiverse. So if you have watched a few of the Bibliotek videos before, you will know that our full name is the Netherworld Bibliotek, and that is because we are situated in the Netherworld, which is somewhere in the multiverse. And that is the same multiverse that Terry Pratchett is talking about. So one of the reasons that we have acquired some of his books are because here in the Netherworld and here at the Bibliotek, we hold his works in high regard. We think he is a very learned person. He seems to know all about the multiverse. Not everyone in every one of the dimensions or one of the worlds in the multiverse is aware of this plane of our existence or aware of this aspect of our existence. So we here at the Netherworld Bibliotek hold Terry Pratchett in very high regard because he is one of the few mortals who know this secret about our existence. And that concludes my video about The Color of Magic by Terry Pratchett. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have read this book or if you have read any other Discworld novels. And yeah, let me know if you have a favorite book or a favorite character. Thank you for stopping by, and maybe I will see you next time.